Golf can surprise you in ways you'd never expect. Sometimes a ball takes a crazy bounce off the rocks, skips across water, or snakes through trees, and still ends up right by the hole. We've gathered the most impossible golf shots ever. Let's find out. 1. Jack Nicklaus. The year was 1972. The location, Pebble Beach Golf Links, one of the most beautiful yet punishing courses on the planet. The occasion was the U.S. Open, a tournament famous for exposing weaknesses and rewarding only the most precise golf imaginable. Jack Nicklaus was already a legend by this point. The galleries followed him in hushed awe, knowing that every swing could end up in the record books. He stood on the par 3 17th, holding a 2-shot lead. The Pacific Ocean's wind came hard off the water, the kind of gust that could throw a perfectly struck ball entirely off course. Many players aim short here and try to scramble for par. Nicklaus? He reached for a 1-iron. For most golfers, even professionals, the 1-iron is a club to avoid. Its small face, low loft, and demanding sweet spot make it one of the hardest tools in the bag to use consistently. Yet Nicklaus chose it with full confidence. He steadied himself against the wind, adjusted his stance, and made a swing so pure it seemed almost mechanical. The ball left the club face like a rifle shot, cutting directly into the breeze. It flew straight, unwavering, then struck the flagstick with a sharp metallic crack. In an instant, it dropped and stopped just inches from the cup. The crowd erupted, Pebble Beach echoing with cheers. Nicklaus gave only a brief nod, picked up his tee, and moved on, as though this were just another hole. But everyone watching knew. They had seen the shot that essentially locked up his 3rd U.S. Open title. Second, Ben Hogan. 2 decades earlier, golf witnessed a different kind of greatness, one born from sheer willpower. In February 1949, Ben Hogan survived a near-fatal car accident. His injuries were severe, multiple fractures, a double pelvic break, and blood clots that nearly ended his life. Doctors were unsure if he would walk again, let alone return to competitive golf. Yet here he was, just 16 months later, at the 1950 U.S. Open at Marion Golf Club. On the 18th hole of the final round, Hogan stood tied for the lead. The fairway was long, the green guarded, and the wind offered no favors. His second shot would require a 1-iron, again that most unforgiving of clubs, struck perfectly to hold the green. The pressure was immense. Miss here, and the dream of a comeback victory would vanish. Hogan addressed the ball with a still, deliberate posture. The swing that followed was powerful yet controlled, the ball rising low and cutting cleanly through the air. Spectators held their breath as it landed softly on the green, stopping within a comfortable 2-putt range. Hogan went on to make par, forcing an 18-hole playoff, which he won the next day. The image of Hogan holding his finish, back straight, eyes locked on the target, became one of golf's most famous photographs. It wasn't just the execution of the shot that was remarkable. This man overcame unimaginable odds to reclaim his place at the top. Third, Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth's bunker shot to win the 2017 Travelers Championship is one of the most iconic finishes in modern golf. In a sudden death playoff against Daniel Berger, Spieth missed the green on the 18th and found himself in the front right bunker with a tricky lie. The pin was tucked close, with a narrow landing area and a slope that could easily send the ball past the hole. After studying the shot, Spieth opened his wedge, dug into the sand, and committed to a full, aggressive swing. The ball blasted out high, landed softly just past the fringe, checked briefly, then trickled toward the cup. In a moment that felt scripted, it dropped straight in for birdie, ending the playoff instantly. It wasn't just a great escape, it was perfect execution under extreme pressure, sealing one of the most dramatic walk-off wins the PGA Tour had seen in years. 4. Jon Rahm. Augusta National is home to a unique tradition during Masters practice rounds. Players on the par 3 16th attempt to skip a ball across the pond onto the green. Most manage to skip it 2 or 3 times before it loses speed and sinks. But on November 10th, 2020, Jon Rahm turned a lighthearted drill into one of the most jaw-dropping moments in recent golf. Standing on the tee, Rahm teed up his ball just off the edge of the water. He took a low, sweeping swing with an iron, striking the ball so it skipped 4 times across the surface without losing balance. From there, it climbed up the front slope of the green, caught the right-to-left contour, and began tracking toward the hole. Spectators on the hill erupted in disbelief as the ball rolled directly into the cup for an ace. While it didn't count toward the tournament, the shot quickly became one of the most watched golf clips of the year. Rahm had turned a practice round tradition into an improbable hole-in-one that blended power, spin, and perfect control. It was a reminder that even without a scorecard, Augusta magic can happen. 5. Phil Mickelson. It was the week before the 2006 Masters. Phil Mickelson was in Georgia at the Bell South Classic, tuning up his short game before Augusta. In the 3rd round, he found himself just off the green with a tree directly between his ball and the hole. The green was sloping away, and the pin was tucked close behind the obstacle. Most professionals, even the most aggressive, would take the safe option, chip sideways into open space, take 2 putts, and escape with a bogey or a safe par. Mickelson, though, has always seen golf shots differently. He crouched, assessed the lie, and took out his lob wedge. But instead of aiming forward, he opened the club face to the point where it looked impossible to make clean contact. His plan was to hit a full backward flop, sending the ball almost straight up and behind him. With one smooth swing, the ball launched high into the air, passing directly over Mickelson's head. It cleared the tree with inches to spare, landed softly on the green, and spun toward the flag. The crowd gasped. Even seasoned commentators admitted they had never seen a backward flop pulled off so cleanly in tournament play. 6. Justin Thomas. This is the beauty we teased at the start of our video. Justin Thomas's shot from the creek during the 3rd round of the 2021 Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass was one of the defining moments of the tournament. On the par 4 14th hole, his drive leaked right and stopped on the rocky edge of a shallow creek. Most players would have taken a penalty drop, but Thomas decided to play it. Standing on wet, uneven stones with water at his feet, he studied the angle and trusted his swing. With precise contact, he sent the ball soaring over the creek, clearing the rough and landing safely on the green. The crowd roared, and even the commentators paused at the boldness of the attempt. Thomas saved par and kept his momentum alive, eventually winning the tournament. That strike from the hazard wasn't just about technique. It showed his willingness to take risks under pressure and find a way forward when most would step back. If you're loving these insane golf moments, hit like and subscribe, because the next shots we've got lined up will blow your mind. You won't believe what's still to come from the course. 7. Tiger Woods. Fast forward to Augusta National, April 10th, 2005. Tiger Woods was at the peak of his powers, already a global icon, but this moment would carve itself even deeper into sports history. It was the final round of the Masters, and Tiger's lead had narrowed to just 1 stroke. He stood on the par 3 16th hole, his ball resting on the fringe above the green in a position most would consider a defensive up-and-down attempt. From there, the safe play would have been to aim close and settle for par. But Tiger had other ideas. Reading the subtle contours of Augusta's greens, he picked a spot well above the hole, allowing gravity and break to do the work. The ball landed softly, began its slow roll down the slope, and the crowd began to swell with noise. Then, in what felt like a scene written for drama, the ball came to an almost complete stop right on the edge of the cup. For a heartbeat, it seemed frozen there. Then, almost in defiance of physics, it dropped. The roar that followed shook Augusta. Broadcasters could barely be heard over the noise. Nike, quick to recognize the magic, turned the clip into one of the most famous sports commercials ever made. Woods went on to win his 4th green jacket. But even among all his victories, this was the shot that seemed to suspend time itself. 8. Tom Watson. Pebble Beach again. This time, it was 1982, and Tom Watson found himself battling Jack Nicklaus for the U.S. Open title. Nicholas had already finished his round and posted a score that looked difficult to beat. Watson reached the 17th hole tied for the lead, but in a position that would test every ounce of creativity he had. His approach missed the green left, settling into thick rough on a steep slope. The pin was tucked dangerously close to the edge of the green, the safe approach. Just get the ball within a few feet and take par to keep the contest alive. Watson turned to his caddy and said something remarkable, "I'm going to sink it." And then he did exactly that. The chip landed softly, took the perfect line, and rolled into the hole for birdie. The crowd erupted, knowing they had just seen one of the gutsiest decisions and executions in championship golf. Watson parred the 18th to seal his victory, but the 17th was the true turning point. It remains one of the purest examples of confidence and touch under pressure. 9th, Vijay Singh. Before Jon Rahm made headlines for his skipping ace, Vijay Singh had already set the bar. During a 2009 Masters practice round at Augusta's par 3 16th, Singh decided to join in the skipping tradition. He placed the ball low on the tee, took a smooth swing, and sent it skipping across the pond, 1 hop, 2 hops, 3, before it climbed onto the green. The ball began rolling with just enough pace to carry over the ridge, feeding directly toward the hole. Spectators lining the banks could see it tracking perfectly. Moments later, it disappeared into the cup for an ace. Singh smiled and waved as the crowd cheered, fully aware that he had just provided one of the most replayable moments of his career. Like Rahm's later version, this shot had no effect on his tournament score, but it became part of Augusta's long history of practice round brilliance. Proof that even outside the heat of competition, greatness finds a way to appear. 10th, Louis Oosthuizen. The final shot on our list might not have been for the win, but in terms of rarity and skill, it stands alongside any moment in golf history. It was the final round of the 2012 Masters. Louis Oosthuizen stood on the par 5 second hole, 253 yards from the green. The stage was huge, the pressure high. Most players would be thinking about setting up a comfortable birdie. Oosthuizen went for more. With a 4-iron in hand, he struck the ball cleanly, sending it high over the front bunkers. It landed softly on the front edge of the green and began its long roll toward the flag. Spectators watched in growing disbelief as it kept rolling and rolling and rolling. Then it disappeared, an albatross. A score of 2 on a par 5. One of the rarest feats in golf, and he had done it on one of the sport's most sacred stages. Though Oosthuizen would go on to lose in a playoff, that single swing was enough to etch his name permanently into Masters lore. From skipping balls across ponds to shots that froze time, golf's shown us anything is possible. Somewhere out there, the next impossible shot is waiting, and when it happens, you'll want to be here for it. So hit like, tap subscribe, and let's watch it together when it drops.